Wednesday, word. Wednesday, word. Wednesday, word. And we are live. What's going on? Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live. It is your man, Coach Rowe. I'd like to welcome you back to the first row. Today is Wednesday. If you know what that means, since we're into the new season, you should know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday word. That's Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it, tonight's topic is communicate. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topic. So what do I mean by the topic communicate? When I state the topic communicate, what I really mean is how do we effectively communicate with one another? And so before we even get into the tools, let me be very clear on this communication thing. Just because I know the rules doesn't mean that I always get the rules right. Doesn't mean that I always follow the rules. But I'm transparent, and honestly, you're going to hear a lot about me in this story that I share tonight about this particular topic. But anywho, what's going on, Casual? What's going on, Big Brother Almighty, Damian Rowe? Man, I'm so excited to be back. I don't even know if you guys can tell or not, but the break is good for the mind, but it also is something to look forward to get back into. So with that being said, let's jump straight into it. What's going on, Cousin Brian? I meant to call you today. Let's jump straight into it. So tool number one when it comes to communicate is state your truth. And so as always with my first tool, I try to use what I feel is like the most powerful, most impactful tool. And really when it comes to effective communication, stating your truth is critical. And because the first person that we state our truth to is ourselves. That's the first person we state our truth to is, what do I want to communicate? If you don't start off with stating your truth correctly to yourself, it's going to be really hard to effectively communicate with someone else. And honestly, you may communicate the wrong things that you really don't even intend to communicate and really aren't even the issues that you want to communicate when it comes to effective communicating. So stating your truth, what it does is it allows us to work from a starting place where we actually are, like the space that we're actually in versus this space that's kind of, oh my gosh, I just forgot the word. It's kind of abstract. That's the word. The space that's abstract, and we're kind of grasping and hoping that we catch the right thoughts or the right things that we want to communicate. So stating your truth to yourself, first and foremost, allows you to have that point of origin of where you are coming from. And honestly, it allows for real communication to take place. When we don't state our truth, number one, to ourselves, and then number two, to the other party that we're trying to communicate with, it really leaves a lot of things in the air for interpretation. I might tell, like, really good example of this. I might tell somebody, hey, look, your breath is not the freshest, right? And I'm trying to state that truth to them. But if I'm like kind of around it, like, hey, have you brushed your teeth today? Or have you been to the dentist lately? If I'm not stating the truth, like the truth is that your breath is kicking like kung fu, for lack of better terms. Your breath is not fresh. And if I don't state that truth and I'm kind of dancing around, it's like, does my tooth look cracked? Does my breath stink? Do I have a cavity? Like the person might miss that interpretation and go down a completely different path than what you wanted to tell them. Like, hey, you might need a piece of gum. Like your breath still smells like the burger you ate. Not necessarily that your breath smells horrible, but it allows for that honest communication to take place when we state our truth. Now, here's the thing. There's a difference between our current state and what we want to communicate and what our current emotions are. I do the thought of the day so many days of the week that I can't remember what my thoughts of the day are, but I do a thought of the day. And one of the thoughts of the day was about emotions in regards to that. Our actions and emotions are sometimes out of alignment. And when they're out of alignment, sometimes it's the emotions that are really taking place that we need to get our actions in alignment with. Sometimes the actions are saying, hey, I've got a great example of this. Our actions are saying, no, we need to bring the emotions to this level. We see this happen a lot in relationships where people get into conflict. I mean, when you're in a romantic, intimate relationship, it is natural for you at some point to get into conflict. I mean, if you have a relationship that is easy peasy and you don't have any conflict, salute, hats off to you. But for the relationships that I've been in and the relationships that I have seen, there comes a point where there's a conflict or where there's disagreement. And sometimes what will happen is we get to an action space, especially as men, we get to this action space where it's like, well, I don't care, whatever. I don't, you just go on this tangent of actions, and then we start distancing. But the emotion, the real emotion is I love this person and I might have fears that they're going to leave me, or I love this person and I'm hurt because they let me down, or I feel disappointed that they didn't get something right. And so we take these actions, but this is the real emotion we feel is love, hurt, fear, abandonment issues, all those things tied into that emotion. But we're taking actions that will actually deepen those emotions and impact those emotions instead of improve those emotions. So stating our truth is being able to come to that conversation, being able to come to that tension and say, hey, look, I love you. I want to start with the emotion, the statement of truth that I have for myself. Do I love this person? Absolutely. So let me start with a statement of truth. I love you. And here is what my truth is in regards to how I feel. Because of X, Y, and Z, I was hurt. I was afraid that you were going to leave. And I feel the reaction that my body naturally wants to have to that, to be triggered and defensive. But I want my actions to align with the love that I have for you. Completely different conversation, even in the midst of tension. Now, let me again reiterate that though I know the rules, I do sometimes struggle with following the rules in my personal life. So please don't take this as, oh man, Billy is great, he gets it right every time. That is not the case of this conversation. You can talk to my wife. If she tells you, she'll tell you, yeah, I'm not the easiest person to be with all the time. Sometimes I am, but not all the time. And then lastly, this tool of stating your truth, it can be difficult for people who want to avoid conflict or judgment. When we want to avoid conflict, we tend to sugarcoat or dilute our communication. I just had a conversation with my boss this week, I believe, and we were talking about, having things that we want to say, but really it's not a problem with the things that we want to say. It's how those things are communicated. So in the sense of, like, let's say you want to resign from your job. I don't want to work here anymore. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. You want to resign from your job. And you go into your boss's office and you say, I'm tired of this crap. You guys get on my nerves. It's not a problem that you want to resign from your job, but how you communicate that can become an issue. And so being able to state your truth to yourself, the truth is that I'm unhappy in this role that I'm in, or I don't see an opportunity for promotion, or I have another opportunity that seems like a more favorable opportunity for myself and my family. That's stating your truth to yourself and being able to go into those difficult conversations and say, hey, look, this may create conflict. This may create judgment. Either way, it's my responsibility to state my truth. And so I'm going to state my truth and stand on that square no matter what. And part of that stating that truth, or part of what gives us the courage to state that truth, is the fact that we are not responsible for how somebody interprets something that we communicate effectively. If we're doing the absolute best that we can to state something in a respectful, calm, articulate, well thought out manner, and somebody says, well, I don't want you to leave because you do all this work that we really want you to do, that you're not responsible for that. And so the avoidance of conflict or judgment, really, that's outside of your control. The only thing that you have within your control is to state your truth, stand on your truth, and communicate your truth in a way that can be received by the general population. Some people are what they'll call overly sensitive. I don't believe people are overly sensitive. You just have different levels of sensitivity. I don't think there's overly or under sensitivity. I just think people have different ranges of sensitivity. However, when you communicate to them, you can only be, again, accountable to yourself. And that comes by being accountable to stating your truth. So I know that's a lot for tool number one, but that's tool number one when it comes to communication or communicate. Tool number two when it comes to communicate is, stay on topic. So I'm super guilty of this. And this is why when I do Wednesday words, I actually write notes so that I know where I'm going and where I want to land. I do this because it's easy in general conversation for me to stray off of topic, to stray into the wilderness or into the forest or whatever you want to call it. And so when you want to communicate effectively, Staying on topic is so important because what it does is it allows your message to be clear and concise. You can take your time with it. Staying on topic is not rushing through it like micro machines. Staying on topic, it doesn't mean you can't go slow and methodical in how you're speaking. Staying on topic is just simply being clear about what your message is. You can't be clear without stating your truth, but being clear about what your message is and taking your time to articulate that message concisely. Concisely means you're staying on topic. You cannot communicate. You can. I don't like to tell people what they can do. I don't like to tell people what they have to do, and I don't like to tell people what they can't do. But it is my recommendation that you do not try to communicate everything at one time. What will eventually happen is you will overload your audience, you'll overload the conversation, and all of a sudden you are miles away from what your original point or topic was. So by staying on topic, what it does is it allows the person to stay focused on what it was that you wanted to bring to the table. Because initially, when we start off talking, whether it's a conversation about, hey, how was your day? Or, hey, I need you to do this this weekend, or whatever it may be. My wife's thing is, hey, I need you to do your laundry and take it upstairs from the basement. That's my wife's thing. But as long as she stays on that one topic, I'm okay, I have this thing to do. But what happens sometimes is when it's like, okay, I need you to do the laundry. Oh, you need to vacuum the basement. Oh, you need to straighten the basement. Okay, you need to clean the kitchen. I need you to mop the floor. I need you to take the trash out. Like, I need the backyard done with this. We need to, like, when you start throwing all those things, even for a person like me who's organized, you start throwing all those things at me, all of a sudden I lost track of the fact that you wanted me to take my laundry out because I wasn't taking notes. Another reason why I take notes when I'm listening to like speakers and lectures. But staying on topic, what that does is it gives a person, honestly, this is my honest opinion, it gives a person a fighting chance to actually effectively communicate with you and receive effective communication from you. Absolutely, Brother Damien. Yes, writing it down, notes is key. Yes, the notes are the key. But as far as for giving the person a fighting chance by staying on topic, you're not inundating them with so much, because the reality is this: when we're communicating with each other, it might be one-on-one for the communication, but there is a whole life in a background and a whole day that took place outside of that one-on-one environment. No one wants to decrypt your communication. I promise you, no one wants to have to go into a conversation trying to figure out what you are trying to say. People would love to go into a conversation and simply say, hey, last week when you slammed the door, it made me feel like you were upset with me for something and you weren't communicating that. Was that the case? It's another thing about staying on topic is in order to stay on topic, sometimes you have to take a step back and not come in as accusatory. And I have been guilty of that as well. And I feel like everything I say that I know is effective communication, I'm going to be guilty of it at some point in my life. So I'm going to stop saying that. Anyway, when you come off as accusatory, it also detours the topic from what it was that was the actual issue. The actual issue is that when you slammed the door, I felt like you were upset at me. That's the issue. But when you're like, yeah, you slammed the door because you was upset at me and you had an attitude, now all of a sudden the topic goes to attitude. Well, now they're combative and now their defenses are up and now they're arguing their point about why they didn't have an attitude. What they can't argue is the point of if you say, I felt like there was something wrong or you were upset with me and you didn't communicate that. They can't argue against, well, you can't feel like there was something wrong and that I felt and you felt like I was upset with you and that I didn't communicate that. Nobody can argue what you thought about a situation or felt about a situation against you, but they can argue about whether or not they had an attitude or not. Then it's not an argument though. It's just natural communication. Well, no, I didn't actually. There was nothing wrong with me that you had did. I was a little frustrated about X, and I'm sorry that came off as frustration with you. That wasn't the case. Again, you lower the defenses by staying on topic, not being accusatory, and also know what you sit on or what you stand on or know what you stand for. Sorry, and by staying on topic, it allows the conversation to, again, not degrade into 16 other issues that you didn't talk about 5 years ago. It's just the moment that you want to address right then. So staying on topic is super critical when it comes to effective communication. And then lastly, there may be other things that you want to say. Like, I know for myself, when I'm talking or communicating with someone, other things come to mind. Oh, I also want to talk to them about this. Oh, I also want to talk to them about that. Oh, I also want to talk about that. Realize that may need to be a different conversation. Like, you may not want to talk about lovey-dovey romantic stuff and then be like, okay, but also there was this one time where you did X, Y, and Z, and now I'm going to bring this up, because it begins to deteriorate the effective communication that you might have had in the front, or it sets the stage for deteriorated communication for effective communication on the tail end of the conversation. So if there's tons of things that you need to talk about, try to take them one at a time, because you're going to need to stay on topic. That's tool number 2. Tool number 3, when it comes to effective communication, is feelings are acceptable. So when I was a child, my father used to tell me when he was giving me these lectures that during his lectures, he takes all emotion out of it. I don't care if you're crying. I don't care if you're scared. I don't care if you're sad, mad. I don't care. I take all emotions out of it. Well, feelings are actually acceptable. And as I'm learning in parenting, we as parents have feelings. And when we try to mute, I think that's the word I want to use. When we try to mute those feelings, what ends up happening is we now are communicating an experience that is lacking authenticity. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out these words that I want to say, but it's lacking authenticity. And it's really hard because humans have a means in communication. We call it the bullshit meter. We have a way of picking up bullshit and being able to say, that doesn't sound right. I remember once a friend of mine and I were at a birthday party, and we were just kind of chaperoning the birthday party. And this guy comes up to us and he's like, yeah, just got done being in the studio with Kendrick, and this, that, and the other. And at that time, I didn't even know who Kendrick Lamar was. I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm looking at this person's cell phone, and their cell phone's like super busted up, Metro PCS. And my friend comes over and he's overhearing this conversation, and he says, Billy, whose phone is that? And I just look at it and I say, his. And he knew who Kendrick Lamar was. And he was like, that's his phone? I said, yeah. And we just kind of, okay. So you're in the studio making $1 million beats, but you have this phone that is barely holding on to life. But if you're really making $1 million beats, not that you need to have the top of the line phone. I'm not saying that you have to have the top of the line phone. However, what you should have is a reliable phone. So that way, when people call and say, hey, we need a beat or we need you at the studio, you can actually show up. The problem is that BS meter started going off and was like, that sounds good, but I'm going to go ahead and move on and chaperone some more kids because I'm not interested in you lying to me as a complete stranger. But feelings, how we feel about things, I say this because how we feel about things comes off, and that energy, you can't hide that energy from people. They call it instinct. They call it intuition. You can't hide your energy from people when you're communicating. So when you try to mute your feelings or act as if you don't have feelings, what happens is an unauthentic communication takes place. And now if you're already in a conflict, it's like, is this person trying to manipulate me? Did this person ever really care at all? What else has this person lied to me about? All these things start coming to the surface because you're trying to act like you don't have feelings. Feelings are 100% acceptable in communication. In fact, they are 100% recommended in communication, because when you can communicate not only what it is that you are experiencing or trying to communicate as far as the topic, but you can communicate the feelings that go along with that. Guess what? We are all humans and know what it means to, and we know what it means to us to have feelings. When you say to somebody, hey, what you did, it hurt my feelings because of X, Y, Z, that person takes the word hurt and thinks about, what are other times in my life I felt hurt? How did I feel in those moments? Did it feel good? Did it feel bad? Did it feel warranted? Did I feel like I was worthless? All those things come to the surface and help the communication. What doesn't help the communication is trying to be a mysterious, unknown, unreadable stranger to the person who you already know. Like, they're like, something is off with this person. attempting to remove those emotions really just builds up a backlog also of emotions that have to later be addressed. And what typically will happen is when we mask our emotions or do not acknowledge our emotions, those emotions from that conversation come up in another conversation. And how can you stay on topic on a current conversation if you're communicating through the lens of emotions from a previous conversation that has nothing to do with the current conversation? Good luck if you can do that. But the reality is this: is you have the right to be angry, you have the right to be happy, you have the right to be disappointed, sad, hurt, or any other emotion that you feel. You have that right to feel that way. But the thing is that when you feel that way, it doesn't necessarily give you the right to react to those emotions. There's a difference between feeling something and reacting to it. To me, when you feel an emotion, you are processing it. When you react to emotion, you are defending yourself from actually feeling the emotion, if that makes sense. So if I, for the longest time in my life, for probably like 20 years in my life, whenever I was sad, hurt, any type of emotion that initially I perceived as weakness, you would see anger take place. It'd be like, hey, throw up the anger shield because we got to save ourselves from feeling and processing hurt and rejection and disappointment. We got to shield ourselves from that because we don't want to feel those things. And so we would throw up this default emotion of anger and lash out. And eventually that bit me in the butt to where it was like, yo, I got to figure out a way to feel things other than anger, because half the time I was actually acting out in anger. I wasn't even angry. I was just hurt. I was just sad. I was depressed. I was not happy with the current set of circumstances. So communicate your feelings. And if at any time, whether you're effectively communicating or ineffectively communicating, if at any time, if you need to, take a break when you need to and learn to communicate while experiencing your emotions rather than blaming the person that you're communicating for how you are choosing to communicate. So feelings are acceptable. That's tool number 3 when it comes to communicate. So really quickly, I want to go over the 3 tools when it comes to effective communication. Tool number 1, again, is, oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong thing. Tool number 1 is state your truth. It helps to understand the space where our communication is beginning at, and that is typically with us. So state your truth to yourself, and then make sure when you communicate to others, you're stating your truth to them. Tool number 2 when it comes to communicate is stay on topic. If we cannot stay on topic, how can we expect others to follow our communication? We cannot. Well, sorry. We probably should not expect that of them. But stay on topic. Put your conversation into a concise manner, a concise package that is easily consumed by a general audience. You might have to make some tweaks because communication is custom, but shoot for the general masses and then customize accordingly. And then lastly, tool number 3 is feelings are acceptable. The more dismissive we are about our emotions, the greater the backlog we are actually creating for ourselves and future communication with that person. Or here's the bonus idea on that, is we're either creating a backlog for communication with that person or somebody else that we're going to interact with in the future because we didn't deal with our feelings in a previous conversation. So those are the 3 tools that I have for you tonight. As always, with the Wednesday Word, I like to share a personal story, something that got me thinking about this topic. And I tell you guys all the time, I'm happy to share the positive stories that I have, but I'm also willing, I'm not happy to, but I'm willing to share some of the negative stories where I don't get it right. And so I named this one miscommunication because this incident took place between my wife and I. And my wife, I think I was in California at the time, and we were talking, and we ended up getting into this argument. And here's where I completely went the wrong direction in this particular argument: is I didn't state my truth. I just simply made an assumption. Well, you're mad at me, so I'm going to be mad at you. I didn't state my truth. I didn't stay on topic once I did start communicating in the first place. And then thirdly, I didn't communicate that, hey, yo, what you said hurt. And that hurt my feelings. So what do? Again, I told you, I'm well-versed in anger. Like if anger was a self-defense, like karate martial art, I'd be a sensei, black belt, 12th degree. But that's where this particular story came from. So we had this conversation. Things went immediately left because I didn't state my truth. And I don't know if she stated her truth or not. I just know that I didn't state my truth to myself, and then I didn't state my truth to her. And then the topic went from this small little issue over here to like a much larger issue that wasn't even a necessary topic to address. And then when you start getting the feelings into it, her and I were just on this place where it just felt like we were just at each other's, not throats, but like just button heads like rams. Like we just couldn't seem to get our communication on track. And this is why when I say, when feelings are acceptable and being able to hear in your feelings that, hey, I need to take a break from this conversation and come back to it when I'm a little more calm, come back to it when I can be a little more concise, come back to it when I can stay on topic, and come back to it when I can state my truth. And it actually took us a while to work through that. And that's one of the things I love about our relationship is that we grow with each other because we work through difficult communication with each other. Again, if your relationship doesn't have any challenges, hats off to you. But every relationship that I've been in, including the relationship that I'm in, has had its set of challenges, has had its sets of circumstances that have not been the easiest to overcome. And part of overcoming adversity, especially when you're doing it with another human being outside of yourself, it's already hard enough to do with yourself. But when you're doing it with another human being outside of yourself, is communication. Communication. It's like real estate, location. But it's with people, it's communication. 9 times out of 10, people really don't have a problem with how you feel about things, what you want to tell them. They only really have a problem with how that's communicated to them. And if they do have a problem about what you've communicated to them, your purpose in communication would be, hey, maybe this isn't the relationship for me to be in. I don't know what relationship you want. Maybe you want to be in a relationship where nobody tells you no and everybody tells you yes. It's not the relationship that I have with my friends. My friends tell me yes and no. However, that's not the relationship that I want to be in. I want to be in a place where I can communicate openly and honestly with people and give them my opinion or my advice because I care about them and I want to see them be successful and thrive. That's where my relationship is. So I missed the ball in this communication. I can tell you where I missed the ball at was because my wife will tell me she tells me all the time, I feel like you're snapping at me, but you're snapping at me because you're frustrated with something else. And sometimes that's true. Not all the time. Sometimes it'd be her, but most of the times it's somebody else. But not stating that truth that, hey, babe, right now is not the right time for me to engage in this conversation because I'm extremely exhausted or I'm extremely frustrated or I have a lot on my plate at work. Can we come back to this at a later time? State your truth. Like, it's important to me. You're important to me, but you're important enough to me to hold off on having this conversation so that the conversation we have can be productive and not counterproductive to our relationship. Stating your truth, not making up something, not taking something out, not saying, well, fine, then we'll have the conversation. That's not your truth. And honestly, it's not going to be the good conversation, just so you know, heads up. Spoiler alert. It's not going to be a good conversation, but being able to communicate, really, that's what it comes down to, is being able to see either when you do get it wrong, there's a lesson for you to learn in that, or when you do get it right, there's some things that you can carry on to the next conversation. That's really what communication is about. And that's how my wife and I continue to grow in our communication, in our marriage, and towards our future is through communication, difficult and easy. So that's what I have for you guys tonight on the first episode back in the First Row Realm, season 4, episode 54. There's so many First Row episodes. If you have not watched like the beginning First Row episodes, our Wednesday Word episodes, I recommend go back and take a peek at those. Those are kind of funny to me because they're short. They're much shorter than what it is today. But before I do let you guys up out of here for the First Row, let me share a couple things that are coming down the pipeline. Number one, when it comes to what's coming on the upcoming shows, is if you haven't seen this show right here, it's only for men. So if you're a woman and you haven't seen it, that's okay. But for men, I just dropped this new show 2 weeks ago called The Men's Circle. It's going to be next Tuesday. It was on a Wednesday because I was on season break. But now that I'm not on season break, the next episode of The Men's Circle will be Tuesday, April 11th. It's already posted on YouTube. You can set a reminder to be there at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I cannot stress to you enough that if you are a man, that you want to be at the Men's Circle. because there's the first conversation we had was about the fact that men need love too. I'm not even going to say what the next conversation is about. If you want to know what the next conversation is about, go over to YouTube, take a look at what's pending in upcoming shows, and you will see what the next conversation is about. But we're going to be talking about a lot of topics regarding and surrounding manhood. There's a panel that comes on of men. We have open conversation with the chat. We forgot to put, or I forgot, I can't say we, I forgot to put up the link for people to join in if they wanted to jump on stage. But we'll put a couple of links up throughout the show for people to join us for like 3 to 5 minutes. But the men's circle, I can't stress enough, be there or be square because you don't want to miss it. Secondly, L3 Perspective. The L3 Perspective is a show on YouTube with Glenn and Coach Cam, Coach Glenn and Coach Cam. Those two men are doing some phenomenal things. L3, the perspective is, again, life, love, and leadership. These are 3 topics that if you are a man or woman, boy or girl, child or adult, these 3 topics, life, love, and leadership, are crucial to the development of success, to the development of being able to thrive in life. So if you want to catch another show, it's not on the first row. It's actually on the L3 Perspective YouTube channel. You can catch them. They drop new shows on every Tuesday. I think around like 5 a.m. in the morning, they drop shows. So I'm not up at 5 a.m. in the morning to watch the show, but I do catch their shows from time to time, and there are some great content providers. And then last but not least, next Wednesday, you can catch me on the Wednesday Word. I don't know what that topic will be yet because I'm kind of still filling out my topics. I thought this week's topic was going to be different, but communication resonated with me for a host of different reasons. So next Wednesday, you can catch me at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time for the next Wednesday Word. We have, I think, 8 more episodes to go before I go back on break, and then I'll be back in the month of July, but probably not at the beginning of July. But other than that, that's everything that I have for you guys today. I appreciate you guys tuning in live. For those who are interacting in the live chat, I appreciate you guys interacting in the live chat. But until the next time, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, please be sure you like it. As always, I'm happy to engage with you in the live chat. And if you're watching via the replay, I'm happy to engage with you for the first 7 days that the content is up. And then I may or may not engage with you because I move on to other content. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the first row.